What's up, everybody?
How's it going, everybody?
Me and Austin just got done working out over here at Flex Gym in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. And like we always do, we always get on the subject of something, and then we're like, hey, we better bust out the cameras and film a quick podcast here.
Yeah, I'm excited. We've talked a lot in the past, both about like motivation and staying on track. We even touched into working out when we did our last podcast together, about deloads and how it can apply to your life. And Jordan and I both were talking last night about nutrition. We've really yet to touch on some of the nutritional stuff, and we thought that we would put something out there for you guys. So
yeah, and we wanted on this first one that we're going to be talking about nutrition is to keep it very basic for everybody and to give you guys some really tangible tools to take with you that are some really great bases of nutrition that literally can help nearly everybody.
Yeah, I think that it will apply to everyone because the nutrition world's a big industry, and there's just a lot of information out there. And I know separately, Jordan and I on our social media platforms, we've talked about different beliefs and ways to be optimal towards your life, and just something that we've noticed a lot. There's a trend in the nutrition industry, and I think it's been around for a while, but I think because we have social media, it's just able to be out there faster, which is not necessarily good nor bad. And I think the big thing that we'd like to discuss today is being cautious of the information out there with nutrition. There's so much back and forth, but really I think the big thing is ways to approach good versus bad nutrition.
Exactly, and then not being fearful from everything you hear and see.
Yeah, not being fearful, checking resources where things are coming from. Because Jordan, that gets really confusing, like if I'm a new person and in this, health and fitness industry, I'm ready to lose some weight or build some muscle or just be able to perform better, like throwing the baseball or football around with friends. Like, there's just so much information that I feel like if I'm someone, I look at one thing, I'm told not to do it, and if I look at the other thing and I start doing that, I'm told not to do that.
Right.
So what do you feel like is a way for someone to get going?
Right. Well, I want to even start like this because you mentioned how to dictate the good from the bad. So let's start right there.
Yeah.
So Austin, in your profession, where do you start in that sense, dictating the good from the bad?
I love that question. I think people need to stop dictating good from bad and start using more practicality in terms of, is it practical to eat a large pizza every single day? Is it practical to, if it's not the large pizza, eating if a little bit of chicken is good for you, eating a pound of chicken a day, or not a day, excuse me, in like a meal. And so what I mean by that is overconsumption. I feel like everything, actually I don't feel like, I mean there's a lot of research that shows overconsumption of anything can be bad.
Right.
I mean that's actually a fact. And when I say that, I mean there's a lot of ways where we can overconsume things that can hinder us. If we drink too much water, that can actually...
water's really good for us.
It's really good for us, but there's just a lot of things out there. So I think being more practical with good versus bad. Now, I feel when I tell people that, they're like, well, I still don't know what that means. So here's what that means, being more practical. Being more conscious of whole foods. It sounds very basic, but we look at the food pyramid, trying to build things off of eating, lean, healthy meats, fruits, grains, vegetables, sticking to a lot of those things. And I understand that we have everyday life. I understand we have busy schedules, we have families. So the practical side also comes from, if we're eating out, making sense of eating out, making sure our plate looks a specific way, not just, all right, I'm going to have the biggest plate of spaghetti you got, I'm going to have the, extra large ice cream chocolate shake that you got afterwards. That's not very practical if you're trying to hit some specific fitness goals. And that's where things go from bad to good. And so it would be more practical to eat something that's got a meat and potatoes plate based and things like that. So I tell people, like, if you're just getting into it, and I know this is a long answer to your question, but like, look at things in a more practical sense versus good versus bad, because I feel like when you get in terms of good versus bad, you're setting yourself up for some failure in terms like, okay, I didn't eat this specific thing that this article says I should be eating, but it's still healthy for me, but I feel like I failed because of this thing. You know what I mean? I feel like it gives people already that sense, if I'm starting to choose good from bad, if I choose something that's deemed bad, even if it's good, like I'll use like a potato. Like you eat a potato versus ice cream, that's good. But then some people might say that type of potato isn't as good for you. And I feel like that's where people are like, well, then how do I do the right thing? And that's where it's like
they get really confused. They get really upset.
Yeah.
And then they give up.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
And so I think you really got into with that practicality thing and dictating the good from the bad. That things are both good and bad.
Yes.
Is what I'm taking out of that.
Yes. Yes.
And so what I'm really getting out of that too, and what I've had a lot of experience with my clients, is that, you know, you're basically saying take the food shaming out of it.
Yes, take the food shaming out of it.
And so somebody, you know, you chose like us and used the milkshake versus the potato. Some people would say, well, you shouldn't have had that potato. You should have went with a sweet potato instead of the red potato.
Yes, correct. Yeah.
Which it's just taking it to a whole nother level. And then you start food shaming a potato that is actually very good for you. That's that can be higher in fiber.
Yeah.
And you're food shaming it, right?
Yeah,
and then you're developing this mental, you know, block or even discouragement against yourself every single time you consume something that maybe wasn't at the best. If you're utilizing this good, better, best system that you think you have to take in the absolute best every single time that you consume food, and then you start food shaming all these other things, that you're left with 6 foods.
Yes.
And then that goes right back to the practicality, right? Is that practical to have 6 foods or 10 foods or whatever it is in your diet to live life?
Yeah, and I love how you put that, because I want to go take a step back. So like when you were talking about like the food shaming, it's that people are, oh, I ate, you know, this basic potato versus this sweet potato. Like you're still eating a potato, and that might be a big step for someone that didn't even know a potato was deemed healthy in the first place. Like they've just gotten to that point. Like that's what we're talking about, because why set yourself up for failure? Now, I want to make a side note too, because I want to make sure that everyone listening or seeing this is getting what we mean out of it. When someone says that this isn't as good for you as, let's say, that sweet potato, a lot of times, because sometimes people even know what they're saying when they say that, but a lot of times, if someone does, usually what they mean is it's more nutrient dense, because our body uses nutrients. We need nutrients to run chemical and biological processes in our body. So that's a lot of times what people mean, like, maybe this potato isn't as nutrient beneficial as this one. You know, this one's got more vitamins than this one. That's where it gets confusing. And so that's why we're sitting here talking and saying, like, okay, well, maybe for that person, that step just getting to the potato is a benefit for him. And that's where, again, where people are saying it may not be as good or bad. And if you don't care about the nutrient side, and a lot of people don't, then just focus on being more practical. Because it's not practical to choose 6 foods.
Yeah, because you're still being much more healthier. You're probably going to fall in the top 5% of healthy people when it comes to eating by choosing to eat that potato versus just eating some processed crap from McDonald's.
Right.
You know, I used to stress about that a ton when I was right out of college and I was really getting into the health and fitness field. I was a personal trainer and I was, I was living it. I was eating what I was supposed to be eating, and I was reading all the time, and I was reading like about chicken and things like that, and how, I need hormone-free chicken, and listen, I would go to Hy-Vee to buy it, and there was no way I could ever afford to buy what they called or labeled a hormone-free chicken versus just buying the normal Hy-Vee chicken. And I was stressing about it so hard. I was 22 years old. I mean, I couldn't spend an extra $1.50 or $2 a pound on chicken. And then I stopped and I thought, and I was like, dude, the way I am eating and what I am choosing to eat these whole foods, I literally am falling in the top 1% of people eating. And I'm like, that is way better choice than ever just buying processed food or going out to eat. And I'm like, that is being practical. Right there. It is being practical. Like, dude, you can't shame on somebody for eating oatmeal in the morning. And when they're 30 pounds overweight and they're just starting to get it, and they're doing their oatmeal and their flaxseed, and you're throwing in their half a scoop of protein or their eggs, whatever they're doing, eating a nice balanced macro meal with protein, carbs, and fats. Somebody from the outside, to me, it really makes me mad when somebody comes up from the outside and says and deems that wrong. Because they're getting in a macro balanced meal. They're making big progresses forward in their own health. Like, from an outside source, it is none of our business to ever shame on somebody for that.
No, and so Jordan made a good point talking about that. Like, even, like, he was talking about, like, if something is, like, hormone free, like, if when we say practical, it's what's practical for you. If it's practical and eating healthy to you is going and buying hormone-free chicken or organic, absolutely, by all means, live your best and healthy life. For sure, we have no problem with that.
Yep.
What we're discussing is healthy is defined differently for most people. Ask 10 different people and you will get 10 different answers of what healthy is, because it's different for them.
Right.
Some people it's going from a milkshake to a balanced meal like a potato and doing those things. Some people it's going from eating traditional healthy foods to now eating more cage-free range or organic, and that's totally fine. But what we're trying to get across is when people start saying, well, because I'm eating this way, it's better than your way.
Right.
And that is where we get into a problem and why people struggle with nutrition, because now it's like, well, I'm not in this group and I'm not in that group, and it's kind of like, don't focus on what group you're in.
It's this level of elitism.
Yeah, yeah, it kind of is. Focus more on just taking the steps and being healthy. Going back to the beginning, if we overconsume things, that's not necessarily healthy. I mean, there is issues with everything that we can consume if it's overconsumed. So it's really just taking the steps. We always say this, taking the steps in the right direction of just, maybe your first step is finding out what a balanced meal looks like, and then applying that balanced meal, and then not going out to eat as often, and trying to eat more at home, and trying to prepare more food. And if you can't prepare more food, then we fall into, there's different choices. Like Jordan said, there can be a good, better, best, but the problem is a lot of people just get hung up on the best, and the best may not be practical for everyone.
And some people's good is their best. Where some people's best, they look at that and they're like, that's only a good choice for me.
Yes.
But just because you're a good choice for you doesn't mean that's not a best choice for somebody else.
I love that. Absolutely.
You know what I mean? So it's kind of like the analogy, I talk about that elitism thing, like I utilize, because I'm a big hunter, that, the bow hunters and the rifle hunters always seem to crap on each other.
They do. That's very true.
I love both, so I kind of stand on Switzerland over here, and I kind of make fun of both, because I'm like, dude, I do both because I want as many takes as I can get.
Yeah.
I don't think a bow hunter should ever crap on a rifle hunter, because, well, my way's way harder, and it takes way more patience and this and that, and well, then how come everybody with rifles not shooting boone and crockett deer every year? It's difficult both ways, and you're all hunters.
Yep.
You should all be on the same team. Same with this. If we're all if you're trying to get healthier, we're all on that same team.
Yep.
You're trying to get healthier, we should encourage each other.
Yes.
And unless you are, at a very high level of understanding of nutrition, probably shouldn't be deeming anybody or shaming anybody for what they're doing, unless you're actually coaching them or trying to help them.
Yeah, and if you want to get to that level, then go through different courses, go through different things, read and learn, and develop your own health, or your definition. Develop your own definition of health, because, like Jordan said, some people's good might be their best.
Yep.
And it's exactly that, because people every year, we always hear too in the New Year's, people always want to just jumpstart and get into it, but a lot of people fall because they don't know. Well, I was doing this, but like half a dozen friends that this is bad, so I switched to doing this, and the other half a dozen friends that this is bad.
Right.
I don't know which good is good, and that, and it's just like, okay, just how about take a step back, apply what we've been saying this entire time, make smart, healthy, conscious choices, balanced meals, proteins, carbs, and fats, try to eat out less. If you eat out, make more sense of what you're eating out. Does eating something and over-consuming it make sense to your fitness goals? More than likely not. And stop, telling people if they're trying to live healthier that this is better than that, because then we start to lose the point of this, and that's being healthy.
That's being healthy, dude.
We all want to be healthy.
So we went off on the being practical right there, but right at the end there, you really led into the next thing in my mind. So you talk about, the New Year's is a great example, and how people start something, they fall off, and that is always what I've seen as one of the biggest problems with most of the diets around, is that they are all diets or styles, or a strategy, whatever it is, versus a lifestyle and a way of life, and learning how to eat and learning what food is and what is in food, which really you can learn the basics very easily, and you can even learn the basics even easier by obviously finding a coach that believes in this kind of stuff and believes in the whole foods and the power of macronutrients, which is protein, carbs, and fats. And so, Austin, let's get into that a little bit about just, hey, instead of falling on and off diets, we talk about being practical, and that kind of really leads into just learning how to eat for a lifestyle.
Yeah, I think that's a great second point. Learning how to eat for a lifestyle is last week I talked about is like tracking macronutrients for everybody, and
This is a great point.
I think that people should be exposed to tracking macronutrients. I don't think it is truly for everybody from what I've seen over the years, because everyone has different personality types, different mindsets. Some people get really fixated on a number, so then when it comes time to living life, like going out to eat with friends or going to a wedding or whatever, they stress about not hitting the number, so they just don't eat. They don't live in that moment and be truly present and making memories. So some people, they may be more beneficial of living a lifestyle of saying, okay, if I'm going to go to a wedding, they've got meat, they've got potatoes, they've got vegetables, I'll eat that. Maybe I'll avoid some of these things just because I don't have the self-control to say no, so I'm just going to eat this and I'll call it good. That's something that you develop over time. So even though I said I don't know if tracking macros is necessarily for everybody, from a mental standpoint, it should be something that everyone should be exposed to, knowing what a macronutrient is, proteins, carbs, and fats. And even just if it's for a day or two, trying to track so you can kind of see, because you
see what a balanced meal looks like.
You'll know precisely this is what that means, this is what that looks like. And then once you know that, you can develop what type of person you are. You're someone that can follow a number like that, and then when time comes, you can have yourself some flexibility to eat and not worry about getting stressed out if we're not over consuming, right? Like we talked about. And then if that's not your personality type, you're more of, I want to be in the moment and I want to eat and enjoy things, well then now you at least know what a balanced meal looks like. You're more understanding of what over-consuming really is, because again, we've been beating the same drum. If we over-consume, that's where we can run into specific problems. So I think that's how someone can develop a kind of their healthy lifestyle.
Yeah, and by learning what each macronutrient is and does, will really help you determine and throw up red flags when you come across different diets and fads and strategies, whatever you want to call them, in the future that maybe eliminate a macronutrient or anything like that. That it will help you dictate, okay, is that right for me? Is that safe for me to do? And so that's what really learning about what the macros, the protein, carbs, and the fat actually do for your body, as internally. Physiologically, which there's some very basic definitions out there. You could literally Google what do carbohydrates do for my body, what do fats do for my body, what do proteins do for my body. You could even take it next level. What do they do for my body during exercise? What do they do for my body in recovery? What do they do for my body during sleep? So you could just pick apart these little things and read these short little sentences, little definitions of them, and get a base understanding of like, okay, that's why this is important for me to take in. And then, like what Austin says, then you're learning from there how to eat your balanced meal and live a healthy life.
I think it's a great third point. We said it earlier, but I think it's something that should be one of these points we're talking about, and that's just educating yourself. So in the beginning, it was being practical about your lifestyle, and then determining what your healthy lifestyle is, and now educating yourself on an actual healthy lifestyle. Like, again, the definition might be different for everybody, but educating yourself on a healthy lifestyle in terms of understanding proteins, carbs, and fats, whether it's research or going and talking to your profession, some sort of your nutrition professional that is educated and has a professional background and stuff like that in this. But you still need to learn a little bit about it, so you can, if something comes out, you can be like, well, I know what these 3 things are, and that sounds interesting and it might fit my needs. But is it something that I can sustain and adhere to for the rest of my life? You can start to ask yourself those questions. And guess what? Rather than shaming yourself, you're educating yourself.
Right. So the 4 great things there is being practical. The second one was determining what your healthy lifestyle is. Third one is educating on your healthy lifestyle. And the fourth one is, you just said it. Brain fart in there.
I am. Like I said,
you were just playing off of it with the whole, you don't have to fear-monger yourself
you don't
anymore,
have to,
and that you're determining what that sustainability is.
I was thinking of mongering. I was like, it was there, but it wasn't.
You're determining what can I do forever to live a healthy life was that fourth thing. Is that, and that will lead you, those first 3 will lead you to that fourth, is that, can I do this forever? That last one is. And can I just manipulate those things up and down a little bit for specific goals?
And all of these things will help you define your definition of health and help you live your best life.
So we hope that this little blurb of nutrition helped you guys out today I know that there's so much with nutrition, it can be confusing. If you ever have questions, don't be afraid to reach out to us. We'll help guide you and answer some questions that you may have. Things aren't always as hard as what they appear to be. It's just sifting through all the information and finding what's right for you.
Yes.
So have a great rest of your week, you guys, and thanks for tuning in with us today.
Thank you guys.